Okay, welcome to the fifth pass workshop. We are now halfway through our semester, so congratulations. We made it almost to halfway. Today, Dr. Susan Roach is here, our literacy learning specialist, to talk about mid-semester. We're talking a little bit about midterms, but also talk about taking an inventory. Part of the things is we're trying to figure out like what have you learned so far about your semester? Maybe what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little about thinking. Why is that important in college to be thinking about how you're doing? And also, what are there things you need to adjust about your work? And also just thinking that we talked a little about growth mindset and all of that as well. We'll have some time on that. So if you have any questions, of course, we keep this pretty informal. So even in the chat, if you just want to interrupt or take a second, raise your hand. Say, hey, I didn't understand that part, or can you tell me a little bit more about this? And I might do the same to Dr. Roach. So, all right, well, take it away. Feel free to, I'll be in charge over here.
Okay, so I'm Susan Roach. I'm the literacy learning specialist in the Academic Support Center, and I teach some writing classes. And I know for a fact that this is a really good time for us to think about where we are and where we want to be and how we can get there if we're not, how we can get there, right? So what we're going to talk about today is reflecting back to move forward. And if you go to the next slide. I just want to backtrack a little. If anybody thought this was going to be how to prepare for your midterms, specifically, that's not what we're doing here, because it depends on your class and it depends on the assessment tools that your professors are going to be using. Because how you prepare for an essay exam is different than multiple choice between false or math or whatever. So, we can't cover all that. By all means, there are places for you to go to get that information. So do that. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to help you understand the bigger picture. And something else that I want to say in terms of backtracking, I know some students are concerned about midterm grades and midterm assessment. Yes, all of your classes you will be getting midterm grades. We are required to submit midterm grades. But they don't go on your official transcripts and they don't determine your final grade. As I said, this is a great time to think about where you are, because this is a time where you can make changes that are really going to impact your grade in the way that you wanted to. So, but the grades will give you a good indication of where you are. I think oftentimes, just speaking about some of the students I talk to, and they'll be saying, well, how are you doing? They'll say, oh, I'm doing fine. I'm doing okay. But I'm not really sure that they know exactly what they're doing. And I think it's really important that we do take that self-inventory. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing self-inventory of where you are. So I want you to think back on things that we did in previous workshops. It was self-analysis. You were being asked to think about things that you did or why you do things or things you could do in different ways. And that, we talked about time management and SMART goals, note-taking, growth mindset, other things as well. Because self-analysis, thinking about what we're doing rather than just being on automatic pilot is really, really important in the learning process. I mean, we might get lucky being on automatic pilot, and certainly automatic pilot is going to get us out of a lot of difficult situations, but it's not the best choice all the time. So if we would, let's talk about this. So metacognition, that's what we're going to be dealing with here today. Thinking about thinking, but basically it sounds kind of silly. I know some students are like, well, what does that mean? But it basically means examining your thought processes, the decision-making processes that you use. And there are 4 questions that are really pertinent to this. So what are you doing or what have you done? Being honest about that. Why did you do that? Or why do you do it in that particular way? Doing assessment, how satisfied are you with the process and the outcome? And the 4th question is, what could you or should you change to improve the outcome on your next exam? So let's break this up again. We'll go to the next slide. Okay. Why it's important to be metacognitive? Again, automatic pilot could be helpful, but could be dangerous. Because learning and academic success are influenced by a number of factors. There's the intellectual factors, the stuff that we know. So like the foundational knowledge that you come into a class. If you've ever been in a class that you have no background in, it's kind of scary because you don't know the vocabulary, you're not familiar with the processes and things like that. In terms of mindful factors and values, the goals, the attitudes, beliefs, the mindset. I teach writing, and I know that there are plenty of people that really don't see as much value in that. What am I going to do with this? I'm not going to be a writer. And so that's going to impact how they approach the class and their assignments. If they don't see value in it, that's it, they could be someone like. Attitudes, I'm no good at that. I've never been good at that.
Oh, I've never said.
I like it. I do it. But you hear it, right? And it's like, so again, just these are the things in your mind, the things that, the baggage that we carry with us that impact how we learn or how well or how open we are, what walls are up there. There's also the physical and emotional factors in engineering class. Some of it is comfort, like this is a good example of it. It's hard to concentrate when you're thinking, oh my gosh, this room is so warm, right? Or so cold. I don't know if you've ever read the Little House on the Prairie books, but I used to read those sometimes, and there was one, The Great Winter.
Oh, yeah.
Myself, I could do this. I could be a prairie for some time. And then the boiler went out.
Oh, no.
And we had no heat. And we had wood burning stoves, and just like in the book, they're stoking the fire and stuff. It's like, I couldn't concentrate. I would sit in front of the fire and try to, get my work done. And it's like, I just couldn't concentrate, right? So comfort, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Is that chair you're sitting in comfy? Is there a funny noise that's irritating you? So those are, some of the physical things that are there. There's anxiety. What's your emotional state at any particular time? You're worried about your cousin who's sick in the hospital. How do you deal with that? And even chemistry. I hope you've all had the opportunity when you've been in classrooms where it just clicks. You like the people that are in there. You like your instructor. It just works because you look forward to going to those kinds of places. Not just because it's so informative and interesting, but it's just a good feel. You feel good in there. So those are certainly things that are going to impact how you learn, how you take the information, how you can show that. What's something else?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so what I want you to do, and that's what we're going to be doing today, is recognizing how some of these factors work for you or against you to improve your chance of success. Okay, so these are the 4 questions. I'm going to ask you to actually do this today. The 4 questions: where are you now? How did you get here? Why is this working? How is this working? And how can you use it for the classroom for the future? So we're going to go through this step by step. Okay, so if we could go to the next slide.
So we're gonna take like an example, right, Dr. Roach? Not like all of your classes, but like
No.
take
So
one
what we're
example.
gonna do
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna ask you to walk through this process. And thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, think of one class that you're in. It could be one that maybe you're not as comfortable in, but it could be one that you're doing very well in as well, because I think we need to know why are we successful or what might get in the way of success. What are the things that help us be successful? So I'm going to ask you to fill this section out. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. What is your, answer the question, what's your grade in your class and how do you know that?
And if you don't know,
Yeah.
right.
Because as I said, I hear the students say, I'm doing fine, but they can't tell me what grade they're getting. And they're not really sure how they would know that. So what is your grade? And also thinking about how much more work is going to be collected that will impact the final grade. So again, where will you find it? Well, it's your syllabus or whatever, and how much more work will impact the grade. So it's really where are you now? So I'll start talking and take a couple minutes. Think about that and do this and fill it out.
For those online, yeah, please take the time, grab a sheet of paper or a pen as the students are doing here in the class and take some time, find a grade, or I'm sorry, find a class that you're looking at right now that you'd like to kind of take a step to think about the class and think about thinking about the class. Metacognition. For those of you just joining online, please take a minute to grab a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and think about a class that you'd like to take a closer look at. It could be a class you're doing well in, or a class maybe you're not doing so well in. And we're going to ask you a series of questions to write down on a piece of paper. You guys need one more minute.
Something that you necessarily finish today. I think it's maybe something that you need more time to think about. But I think both of these are important in terms of what is your grade. You should know where you're at. If you don't know where you're at, you should try to figure out where they will be. I'd like to believe that everybody puts their grades in D2L, but I know that's not always the case. And so for some students, it is legitimate. They say, I don't really know, right? Because they don't see that. But how are they then, if you're not being able, if you are not able to track it in D2L, then you need to take the responsibility to track it yourself. So, figure out what you've done, what the grades were and such. Or have that conversation with your professor, right? In terms of where am I? Am I doing okay? What do I need to do? Well, that. And then how much work will be collected that will impact the final grade? I think that's also important. I just had a conversation before I came here with one of my students who didn't do so well in this retreat. And he's understandably a little frustrated and unhappy and such, but we had a conversation saying, you've got 3 more papers to turn in. So this one grade is not really going to make you a breakthrough, especially since it's the first one. So it's important for you, rather than getting yourself kind of worked up and distraught and anxious, which is only going to make your situation more difficult, look at what you still have to do, right? So you can look at this in perspective. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is probably one of my favorite questions. How did you get here? And this is one that you really need to be honest with yourself and you need to be specific. So what did you do or what did you not do? I had students who told me they did things, but I don't see it. It's not in D2L, so if they did it, where is it? It's there or it's not. I think sometimes we have good intentions to do things, but we don't really do them. So in terms of what did you do or not, to be honest, to be specific. So you say, well, I studied hard. Well, what does that mean? Well, I studied 2 hours a day for this class and an hour a day for the other class. Or I went and joined in study groups or whatever you do. So what did you do? I talked to my professor, went to office hours. So thinking about the things that you did. So if again, if it's a course you're doing well in, it's probably easier to identify, I did all these wonderful things and that's I'm doing so well. But if the ones that you're not doing so well, think about what resources were there that you could have used. Okay, you didn't. Right?
And it's so easy. It's so easy to, I think it's human nature to say, I'm doing good, I'm fine. It's right. It's so, yes, you are fine. And yet, if we don't take an honest look, and the only person who can decide that is you, right? No one else can, your professor can give you some clues. The 4 of us might be able to give you some clues on where you're doing, but only you know. Even if, well, maybe you're studying for 4 hours, but you're not getting anywhere. Or you do all the checklists and you did everything except hit submit on Dropbox to your homework assignment, and that's what it is,
Or you
right?
saved the wrong file.
Yeah, you saved the wrong file, right?
It doesn't get you any points,
Yep.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny story, maybe it's not that funny, but when I was an undergrad, You know, I used to go to this, yeah, I don't know if you'll appreciate this or not. I used to go to the library, study, that's a good place to study, library, right? Not really, because all my friends were there too. And don't really study at the library.
Uh-huh.
Not really time chit chatting, but you know, it was fun, but yeah. It's not, I didn't really study. Okay, so, and I think it's important that you ask yourself, why did you make those choices? What motivated you or held you back? I have conferences with my students, half of them they're required. Half of my students show up. So I'd like to know, why did they not want to talk to me? Were they scared of me? Were they just too busy? No, because they're scheduled during class time, right? So I can't make that, so you think about the things that you've done, why did you do it? Or the resources you didn't use, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you study every day? You know, or whatever it is, okay? And think about this too, intellectual, emotional, physical factors that impacted your choices. Maybe you don't have a good study space. You know, maybe there are other things going on in your life that it's just so hard to concentrate because you're worried about those other things. You know, physical factors, again, here's a push for the food pantry, but you know, you forgot your lunch, you're hungry, it's hard to concentrate, go up to the food pantry, there's lots of goodies there, it's for everybody, right, so go ahead and take advantage of that, but again, is there something that's in the way? So what motivated you or held you back? So I'll give you a couple minutes for that. Oh, and the last one, were there circumstances out of your control? And yes, that could very well be. You know, you can't help it if you get sick. Or, you know, whatever, if your car breaks down and you can't get to school, that, you know, snow, ice, whatever, but are they still an issue? And is there anything you can do to lessen it? So if you know there's a problem that might keep recurring, do you have a plan how you might get around it, right? So again, a couple minutes to answer these questions.
We'll give 2 minutes or so. That last question is an interesting one, really quick, about circumstances out of control. Because it makes me think like, it is such a hard question, because you're right, there's snow, your class is canceled, your dog got sick, you know, there's so many things that come up that feels like I can't do this assignment because. And it's very, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's more of how can we, it can feel like that sense of panic or anxiety that also accompanies when something's out of your control, right? Your question of, can you do anything to lessen the impact? I think students, and I want all of you to hear me really loud and clear, you have more control than you think you do. Even if there is a situation like snow or ice, or you get sick, there is more you can do for a class, especially if you're struggling, and then you think there is, whether that's contacting the instructor or working with, like getting tutoring to make sure you're catching up for those missed weeks of class or whatever it is. I think that last question it can feel like an easy out, if that makes sense. But I think there's a lot more that's in your control than you assume that is in your control, is what I'm trying to, if that makes sense.
And that's for being realistic, and on the other hand too, it's like sometimes I see students that think they can do everything. You can't do everything, so you've got to be realistic and
Yeah.
make some priorities in terms of that. But so what were the circumstances that, that could you have done something? Can you still do something to rescue that thing? Okay, we'll move on to the next question, which is, how is this working for you? And again, too, I don't know that people really stop and think about it, because so often we are on automatic pilot. We just keep going, next paper's due, do that, next exam's coming up, just do that. And we don't think about how well our practices working for us. Should we perhaps modify them? So are you satisfied with the results of your choices? Gee, I studied 2 hours a week. I did pretty well on that exam. I'm satisfied with that. More than 2 hours is what I said. I break my assignments up into parts, so I'm not writing my paper when I before it's due or the morning of. Or just saying, no, I got a really good grade, and no, I guess what I'm doing is not working that well. And I also have the question, and again, do you want to be better than you are? I had a student last semester, who at the end of the semester, he was getting an F. And he was trying to tell me that he was shooting for a D, but apparently he shot a little too low, right? And it's like, sad, so in terms of, do you want to be better? Some people are happy with a D or the C or whatever, and that's individual choice. But if you're not where you want to be aware of that and figure out what were you doing that wasn't working, and what did you not do that perhaps might have helped. But I'm just very surprised by the results of your choices. I think, in the sense that it's all how I did what Mike was telling you, some people are surprised that they only got, and I'll use my class as an example, but they got a D on paper. But I did the same thing I did I teach, first year writing. I did the same thing I did in high school, and I got A's on my paper. So I'm surprised that I didn't get a better grade, because I'm a good writer, right? And so that's, again, another question to ask yourself in terms of, why did you think that was going to work? Why is it surprising? And maybe that should tell you something about the choices that you've made and the things you've been doing. So, some people might say, I'm surprised I'm doing so well. Yeah. That's great. That means you've been a little too hard on yourself, perhaps, or you've developed some really good habits, or whatever it is. Know where your strengths are, know where your weaknesses are. So
I have an example too about the first question. I just had a result. So I had a student today talked about how he's not thinking of switching his majors because he realizes he does not like 8-week courses. 8-week courses are not 16-week courses. They are fast paced. You have to know your material. And some classes here are 8 weeks. And he's realizing, you know what, I'm not satisfied with that. Like, I think I'm going to drop these. And I think now I'm ready to change my major too. So I'm realizing the material is coming too fast and furious, right? And it might be great for someone who loves that particular subject matter, and it's okay, but that's him doing some metacognition of realizing, I think now I'm going to be moving into another subject that actually speaks to me, and it's going to be at that 16-week pace course, right? Which is a typical semester. That's another example too that I could think of.
So do you have time to answer those questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not. Sorry. You have a couple minutes. 2 minutes.
Question. You really, what can you, how can you use the past and examining the past to improve the future? Again, if I'll go back to the pilot, if we just keep doing things because that's what's coming up, you might get lucky, you might not. I had a student once that said, why do I keep getting the same grade? And my answer was because you keep doing the same thing. I mean, your grade's not going to change, but you've got to make those changes whatever. So, and this I think is going to take more than the 2 to 3 or 5 minutes that we give you. This is something that I'd like you to leave thinking about, but in terms of what can you change and why, why might that help? So when you think about the things that you're doing, so what are you doing now? Are they working well? If not, what can you change? Maybe you shouldn't go see your professor and ask those questions. And that's another thing, asking questions. Students sometimes, again, I don't know if they're afraid to ask questions or they'll figure it out. But just like, we're not talking about major life changes here. I mean, sometimes it's really little things that you can do that will have a vast impact on how you can manifest. Asking those questions, looking for examples or whatever. But so better time management. If you're not able to get assignments in on time because you have too much going on, then you need to figure out how are you managing your time. So goal setting, which was one of the other workshops that we had. But if you don't have a goal, again, you're on automatic pilot. You're just sort of going along. You should have something that you're striving for. You should always be readjusting those goals, because I had plenty of people the first day of class and say, what are your goals for the semester? They tell me they want an A in the class. Well, it makes sense, and then you don't be able to get that A, but they should remind them, say, okay, well, let's go for that B or whatever. But if you're thinking, oh, I won't get the A, so it's a lost cause. No, just keep thinking about what you want to accomplish. Right? And again, with being specific, I want to be a better student. Well, what does that mean, right? So what does that mean for you? Better study habits. Again, what does that entail? Think of, as we said, the other things we talked about. Think about intellectual, emotional, physical factors that are impacting. So what can you change? If you don't have a good study place and you're just going to throw your hands up and dismay, keep looking around. Right? If something isn't working, maybe you want to, have a study buddy. And it doesn't have to be somebody in your class, but there's something to be said about accountability. Being with I hate to use this phrase because it implies that it's misery, but misery loves company kind of thing. It's sometimes easier when you've got somebody there next to you, right? Just because we're social animals. Or maybe it's just you need to be away from people and you're in these study groups and they're making you crazy. You need to be on your own. Everybody is different. Different people, different classes, different instructors. So it's not like you have to have one plan and it's going to fit for everything. Think about the context in which you're in. And then, again, not to be negative, but think about the things that you need to continue doing to be successful. That's, if we don't understand our strength, that's probably, could be just as dangerous as not understanding our weaknesses, because we're not taking advantage of what we do well. And, it doesn't, again, it's not a one size fits all. It did nothing. Maybe you have a study group in one class because you have to, and you realize that really helps having the opportunity to talk to people and such. Is there some way that you can use that in another class? Maybe you're using tutoring in one class and you want to use tutoring in another class or whatever. So think about what's working for you, and if it's working for you in that one class, then we could adapt to another class and use that somewhere else. So something to consider. All right. So take a couple minutes to think about this, because I said I don't anticipate that you can answer this in just a couple minutes. It's the kind of question I want you to keep thinking about and keep reevaluating as you go through the semester. So my advice is to do this inventory for each of your classes. Because I think even if you feel like I'm doing just fine, ask yourself, why are you doing fine? Like, what are the habits that you have? What are the attitudes? What are the values? For some people, you were saying something about early morning, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember my first semester in college, I figured, okay, I can take it at o'clock, but I didn't be in fact at 8 o'clock in high school. One semester, never again. Because it just didn't work that well for me. But so just even thinking, maybe it is the time of day, maybe it's the classroom, you don't have any control over the classroom that you've got, but, are you a better student in the morning? Then maybe you shouldn't be taking those afternoon classes. I realize you can't always control that, but maybe you can. Are there certain, some people, I'm stories here, but like, so when I was in graduate school, and I was commuting, so it took at least an hour to commute. And there was a class that only met 3 times in the semester. But a lot of it was online, but we met on the weekend. So we had Friday night class. We got there at 5, we stayed till 9, and then we had class Saturday from 9 in the morning to 5 p.m. And I thought, this is brilliant. I don't have to drive back and forth all the time. I got a cheap hotel room for the night. So I stayed there and it was like, this is going to be great. Do you know how hard it is to sit in the classroom from 9 to 5? I thought, what was I thinking, So again, I mean, we sometimes make decisions somewhat foolishly, or with little analysis in terms of, is this really a good fit for me or not? So I think it makes sense for you to take an inventory for each of the classes, figure out what works for you, what your strengths are, use them, be able to use them in other classes, and then also recognize some of the challenges you face, because it's not going to go away unless you address it, and you can't address it unless you know where to find fun, right? So taking that inventory, and please don't forget to use the resources on campus to help you succeed. And of course, like the big push for the academic support center, we've got the learning specialists, we've got peer tutors, we've got, we want to talk about study skills, we can do that. It's a third floor. It really is. It's a quiet study space. If you just need someplace to go where you think you won't be too interrupted, it's been pretty quiet.
Sort of.
Well,
of the day.
So don't forget the word for no. You shouldn't feel like you have to do it on your own. I think probably sometimes pride gets in the way. I should be able to figure this out. I'm smart enough. I can do that. Or you don't want to work, whatever. I don't know what it is, but nobody got to where we are. We have resources to use. We have friends, peers that help us along the way. So use what works for you to be successful.
I would also say do this with a friend, like do it with someone you trust, or you could do it with one. You can do this inventory with any one of us. I'd be happy to do this with any of you students, or even online if you want to set up a time with me. If you feel like you would like someone to just kind of verbally talk you through some of this stuff too, be like, hey, I don't know why I'm struggling with that. I did the inventory, but I'm stuck, right? Like I don't get why this is hard. Sometimes a friend can help you with that, but that's why we're here too, to make sure that if there's someone you kind of want to walk through those particular specific parts of like why you're always like, you're getting into these habits, you don't realize you keep getting this bad grade, you keep missing this one part of this assignment and you don't know why. Well, that's why we're here. So that's the other part too.
And don't be afraid to touch your professors.
Yes.
Students will come in, they have questions about an assignment, and I'm not putting in the class, so I don't have all that information. I will tell them, you need to talk to your professor in terms of what exactly you need to do here. I can make a guess, but that's not really gonna, that could be good, but it could be bad. So you need to talk to people, and so use the resources that are available. And you said too, sometimes you don't know why, and sometimes it's a problem, but you don't know how to change, and not that any of the answers will just help you walk through that. So, okay. So that's your questions, concerns, comments?
I'll go ahead and stop the recording.
Okay, so the next